Hello world, I am Curtis Simpson, and this is Jeschke's Typography News number 56. Today is Friday, June 5th, 2026, and per usual, I have plenty of typography news to get into for you today. I have 5 featured stories. We're going to be talking about Adobe fonts, Bureau Brut, artist corporations, which is an interesting development, and AI integrations. We've got 6 new releases this week, one of which is free. We've got new releases from DJR, David Jonathan Roth, Maxitype, PSTL, PS Type Lab, Heavyweight, and Brandon Nickerson. And then we're going to be doing some special coverage of the Designers Foundry's works in progress. I talked about these briefly last week, but these are going to be sort of like the deep dives this week, are going to be looking at these works in progress, these beta fonts coming out of the Designers Foundry. So I'm going to switch my screen and we're going to hop right into it. If you are new here, all the links are linked, all of the stories are linked in the description. None of them are sponsored. Everything is just there for your convenience. And likewise, I will be adding chapters after the live stream ends. So if you're watching the replay, there are probably chapters down there. If not, add it to your watch later and then come back. The first one here, let me go to my screen switched. Boom. The first one here is actually something I used to do all the time when I first started live streaming, because my live streams were so bad that I would say, hey, go watch this instead if you haven't already seen it. I'm going to do that right now. Put this on pause, open up a new tab, add it to your watch later, whatever you need to do. If you have not seen this video from Rabbit Hole yet, it is called The Unsolved Mystery of Lorem Ipsum. And I'm not going to hit play on this because I've got hit from YouTube before during a live stream for playing videos. So you're just going to have to trust me on this one. Rabbit Hole, I wish that I knew the woman's name that does this. I don't. It looks, yeah, I'm not sure. But this video goes through and unravels the mystery of Lorem Ipsum, and it is not the story that you probably learned. If you think you already know the story of Lorem Ipsum, I promise you do not, because no one did. So it's really, really cool. It's only 26 minutes, but this must be a pretty new channel. I was not familiar with it until this came out. You can see the videos on there. There are only 4 videos starting 3 months ago, but I have added the other 3 to my watch later, and I gave this one here a big thumbs up on my personal account. We're on my Objectives account right now, but go watch this. It's really cool. It's 27 minutes, but it flies by, and I really, really can't recommend it enough. The unsolved mystery of Lorem Ipsum. Spoiler, it gets solved. So go check that out. If you're not going to check it out now, add it to your watch later. I promise you will not regret it. Next up, we've got some quick stories here. The first one is coming out of Adobe Fonts. I am going to pull up the Blue Sky post where I first saw this, and it was from Elliot J. Stocks. If you don't know, I forget what his title is, but he recently took a full-time position at Adobe Fonts. He's kind of worked there before a little bit, but he was on the original Typekit team, I think. Anyway, he works there now. He posted this. It says, Adobe Fonts team launched a fun little side project last week, Glyph Finder. It allows you to see how the design of specific characters varies across a random selection of different typefaces from the Adobe Fonts library. I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to come back because I did ask a question. Here's where it is. Let's just go for a J for Objectives, and boom. We're going to see a bunch of different J's. Kind of cool. This is, just like the post said, it's a random selection. So immediately my head starts being like, what is the use case for this? Because it's cool as like a sort of inspiration if you're designing a typeface, or if you're just trying to find, if you're doing some type of project and you need like a very specific type of character glyph, and you want it to look a certain way. Or my other thought was, like, if you're trying to figure out what a font is and you want to go through and you're like, I know that the J looks like this, so just show me a bunch of J's and I'm going to go through and find the right one. The problem is what you see is what you get. There's nothing more than this. You can do another random instance of it. Like you can hit the refresh or whatever this button is called. Do they have a pop-up on there? No, they don't name it, but the refresh or reload, and it'll give you another set of characters. but there's no way to filter. What I think would be nice is something like Adobe Fonts has. We're gonna let that load in the background while I go back to Blue Sky here. I asked, what do you see the use case being for Glyph Finder? And Elliot J. Stocks replied, two things. Firstly, to check which fonts actually contain a particular glyph. Interesting. And secondly, to see how the design of that character, whether it's alphanumeric or just a random icon, differs across different typefaces. I completely see how both of these could be useful and valid use cases for Glyph Finder if there was any way to do what he's saying we should be able to do. Firstly, to check which fonts actually contain a particular glyph. How would you possibly do that? Let's just do one of these manicules here because they've got some of them here that you can test out. Click the manicules. Man, a lot of these look real similar, don't they? That's crazy. A lot of these are VDL, so a lot of these are not, they're not necessarily Ballingers. Really cool. Look at that. It's like a one of those carved stamped wood things. Got the cartoon hand over here for Teddy. Anyway, getting distracted. So if you could search for Garamond Premiere Pro, like we can see right here, that would be great because you could see if it really had it. Look at this. What is the Koopa, King Koopa? He's got like the wrist thing from Mario Bros. If you could actually say like, oh, I want to go to Garamond and see if it has a manicule, that would be awesome. But you can't do that. All you can do is see a list of random fonts. You can change how they're spread out, roomy, cozy, compact. Go ahead and set it on roomy because I think that'll look the best on live stream. But what use is it to have a bunch of random glyphs on here? I mean, they look cool, but really, what's the point of this other than like random inspiration, like going on here and wasting your time and hoping that you see something that helps you? Let's go back to number 2 here. And this is nothing against Elliot. I mean, I guess my opinion is that this isn't really a accurate representation of what you can do with this, but maybe this is the hope for the future. Secondly, to see how the design of that character differs across different typefaces. I think that that's also a cool thing. Like you can see on here, there are a bunch of different manicules on this second refresh, this reload that we did. Some of the ones that are the same, I feel like this should be like tweaked a little bit because you shouldn't probably have 2 of them from the same family. But we can see a bunch of different, options, and you can kind of see how crazy they are. This one, it's Scotch Modern, is huge compared to everything else. That's wild. Wanchi here is like a real, that one's pretty realistic. It's got the knuckles and stuff on it. So it is cool to see the variety here. And I could definitely see that being good for type designers. But again, what I think would make this much, much more useful, and keep in mind, this literally just came out this week, so it can always get better, is if you actually had some of these filters on Adobe fonts like we have here. Let's see how big I can make this without breaking it too much. So they've got some tags here. That's not super useful. What I think would be more useful are the classifications. So if you could do sans serif, serif, slab serif, script, mono, hand, those ones, even if you could just do those, because you're not always going to be doing something dumb like a manicule. Like I said before, you could do a J, or we'll just do an F for Friday. Let's throw an F on there. And then if you only wanted to see Didones, if you only wanted to see like modern typefaces, you could go up here. They don't have a modern one, do they? Well, you could do high contrast serif typeface, and you should be getting some modern typefaces on there. It's not doing too good of a job, is it? But you get the idea. DM serif is pretty good right there. So if you wanted to see just how a certain classification of type handles a certain character, this would be an excellent tool. You could just come in, see a bunch of them at once. Once again, the problem is you can't do that because you just get a random set. So if you could do that, or you could come through and you could do, the weight, width, contrast, X height, stuff like that. Or if you could literally just search for the font that you want. If you could just type in Garamond and see how Garamond solves, I don't know, the paragraph symbol or something like that. Let's go ahead and click the paragraph. If you wanted to see how they handle that, and I know this has a real name, but I don't know what it is. But if you wanted to see how a specific typeface solves this, like Elliot is suggesting is the point of this, then I think you need some filters. I think you need a search, but it's pretty cool and it's interesting that it exists at all. I don't know how much of this is vibe coded. I don't know how much of this is. I would hope that. I mean, probably. I'm not going to speculate. I'll be a journalist here. Put my journalist hat on and just say no speculations here. But in its current state, is it a cool little thing to check for 30 seconds? Yeah. Is it actually a useful tool right now in the ways that Elliot suggests that it should be? No, I don't think so. I don't think that it solves this issue. I don't think that you can actually do what he's saying it is designed to do. Next up, we have an announcement from Bureau Brut. And it started out with this email newsletter right here from Bureau Brut. If you're not subscribed to their newsletter, I would suggest doing it. I subscribe to every single Foundry's newsletters. I don't think you need to do that. But if there's a Foundry that you like, go subscribe to their newsletter because it is interesting to get the updates. They have updated everything. They've updated their identity. You can see they've got the cat here. We'll go look at this on Instagram in a second. They've updated their website. They've updated their license. They've updated just everything. They're not really showing too much on this, are they? Let's look at Instagram real quick because I do want to show you the cat on here because I think it looks pretty cool. This alone is neat, but what's even cooler is the backstory, of course. Up here it says, since you know we love cats, it'll be no surprise to learn that our mascot is a cat too. Meet I'm going to say Maru, and it's someone's cat. Let me show you what I think is cool. This right here, it's actually like a linoleum carved stamp. I don't know if you guys did this in grade school. We did this in my art class. One of the girls in my class cut her finger and then saw the blood and passed out. Besides the point, this is really cool. And the fact that it was done in this way is really neat. I don't know that this distressing on the distressing on this final one here is really from that linoleum stamp or not, because I think that turning that into a vector might be difficult. So they may have just been imitating that in the end, but it looks pretty cool. And they definitely, oh, there it is right there, isn't it? That's a little bit different though. Let's see if they show us the final one. Yeah, so they've got the vectorized one right there, and then I think they're doing a little bit of distressing on it themselves. But the whole process is cool. I don't know, seeing a little bit behind the scenes I like. And I like that they're doing a mascot. I mean, I have a mascot for my brand. I think mascots are fun. I think they're memorable. I think it's a good choice for a Foundry because Foundries are basically just type. Most Foundries have terrible logos. And I think Bureau Brut, I really like this thing up here. Is it easy to read? No. But is it cool? Yeah. Bureau Brut with the letters intertwining. I really like that. I think that's pretty neat. The most interesting thing about this though, I did mean to reach out to them this week and get some more insights. I apologize, I forgot. And right before, when I was doing my prep for the live stream today, I was like, oh shit, I forgot to reach out to them. But I want to show you this because I think this is cool. And at first, my reaction was, whoa, like not in necessarily a good way because my face is covering up a little bit, but it's not, you're not missing too much. Because everything was just kind of on the screen. And then I was like, okay, yeah, actually everything is just on the screen. You can scroll through right now and you can see all of the fonts and you can get a quick vibe check on what the typeface is, how deep it is. You know, you can see all the styles all at once. Obviously, if they had like 200 typeface families, this wouldn't work. But the collection that they've got right here, this is excellent. You can literally see every font in the typeface, every style that it has, and you could see it all together. I think this looks great. You know, I think it's very utilitarian. Does it actually look great when you look at it? Maybe not, but I think they're doing a lot of stuff that makes a lot of sense. The branding, the licensing, the way they're laying out these fonts here. So Bureau Brut updated everything. Go check it out if you are into them. I think we talked about, maybe we didn't actually talk about it. Yeah, I think we talked about Brut Grotesque recently. So yeah, we definitely talked about that. We talked about that. Okay, 2 more featured stories, and then we're going to get into some typefaces. This first one here is something I had not, maybe let's make sure that this doesn't play. Okay. This first one here is something that I was not previously familiar with. It is called the Artist Corporation. And it is something that this guy right here talked about on TED almost a year ago, 11 months ago. Let's see what the actual date is. Yeah, we're just like 2 weeks away from the 1 year anniversary on this. This is Yancey Strickler. Hopefully I'm saying that right. He was one of the co-founders of Kickstarter. And he did a speech. I watched it. I don't think that it necessarily answered a lot of my questions. And to be honest, it's kind of pushing a dream without selling me a lot of solutions. But this is the Artist Corporation. And why am I bringing this up today? Because this week, Colorado signed it into law that this can exist. And it's basically a very specific type of business. Like my business is an LLC because that's all that was available to me at the time. But now this Artist Corporation exists. It's kind of interesting. He did talk about visual artists and how little money they make and how difficult their lives are. But he also talked about music artists and talked about how, with Spotify and YouTube Music and Apple Music and stuff like that, artists aren't making as much money, but the corporations are making a lot of money. I don't know how this corporation structure solves that problem. It's supposed to be an easier way for an artist to create a corporation. It's not that hard to create a corporation. I mean, I have a business degree too, so maybe it's a little bit easier, but like, I really don't think that it's that difficult. Go hire a registered agent. It costs a few $100s. It's super, super easy. But there are some interesting things on here, and it's in order to be an artist corporation, the artist must control at least 51%. I think that's interesting because then you can never get bought out. He talked about private equity and venture capitalists and stuff like that investing in these type of artist corporations to help artists out. But I think that it's interesting that the 51% artist control is required. So they always have control over what the company is going to do. I really, really like that. Of course, you could already do that with an LLC. You could just not sell more than 49% of your company. But anyway, I'm not going to dig into this too deep because I really don't 100% understand what's going on. But I do think that it's something to pay attention to in general, especially now that it's actually become a law in Colorado. So if you are an artist or creative and you don't have a company and you're just a sole proprietorship, turn yourself into a company. But if you are in Colorado or if you hire a registered agent, you can still set up a company in Colorado. I'm not going to go too much into that, but this is something to put on your radar. For those of you who care about this, you'll understand it. For those of you who don't worry about it. Artist corporations, these are both linked in the description like everything else. There's a 10-minute TED talk. Maybe it'll give you a good introduction. I was left with more questions than answers, but the website does seem to be a little more straightforward. Okay, let's move on. One more featured story. Let me check the chat. Nothing. Okay, perfect. So I'm not going to get too deep into, did the link break? I think they removed their story. That's really interesting. So you probably can't see it up here in the link, but the link says the YouWorkForThem catalog now available inside Claude. I am going to search for this. YouWorkForThem Claude. Because they did have an article on here. That's the Claude font. Oh my gosh, they removed it. I wonder if, okay. Let me just throw my face cam on since this is broken. That's really interesting. So I'm just gonna throw my face cam on. We'll talk about this for 1 minute and then we'll get to some typefaces. So YouWorkForThem posted an article this week that said they now created a Claude connector. I haven't really gotten into any of these connectors that you can connect to AI. One, because I don't like to connect anything. I don't sign in with Facebook. Well, I don't even have Facebook, but even when I had Facebook, I don't sign in with Facebook. I don't sign in with Google. I don't sign in with Apple. I don't do these things. I don't connect one app to another app because I don't want this company to have my information from here. So when it comes to like Claude, I'm very hesitant to connect it to anything. That said, that's just a preface to let you know that I'm kind of a dummy when it comes to these things, these connectors. But I have seen a big trend of different companies announcing their connections. So Affinity, which I use every day, has some Claude integrations now. You can actually have Claude create like little apps inside of Affinity. I know that the week after Affinity announced that, Adobe announced that same thing. Monotype recently announced that you can have an integration with ChatGPT to do to find fonts. The My Fonts AI search is horrible. I could do a whole episode on that by itself, but I just didn't think it was worth it. And now YouWorkForThem. I guess I got to pull up YouWorkForThem in general so we can kind of look at like what YouWorkForThem is. But YouWorkForThem is how would you describe this? They got a lot of independent graphic designers and type designers and stuff like that, and they put their typefaces on here. You know, it's kind of like Creative Market. It's kind of like Font Spring. It's kind of like any of these Font Bros, any of these websites that have independent typefaces, type designers on here. I will say the quality on here compared to something like Creative Market does seem to be a little bit better, but you're kind of getting the same thing. I don't know how licensing works. I mean, how well it is for purchasers. I don't know how well it is for the designers. I don't know any of that. But they recently had a release a press release, which was taken down apparently in the last 2 days, that announced that they would be integrating it directly into Claude. So you could just ask Claude like, hey, I need a font for a birthday party. Hey, I need a background image for this. I don't know, wedding invite, whatever it is. Can you show me this? And it's like, you don't even have to go to the website. You don't even have to search for this. You don't have to do that. Like Claude's just going to tell you what to do. And it's all integrated right in there. Like creatives do with everything AI, people made a big stink about it. And now it appears to be gone from the website. That doesn't mean that the connector is gone, but it's gone from there. So I'm going to stop talking about this because it's a developing story now and I'll have to research and figure out what's going on. But there is this trend of creative applications and platforms integrating with not putting their own AI or like white labeling ChatGPT or something, not putting AI into their own website, which they all did and we all hated, but rather creating connections with other AI platforms. I think that's kind of a better thing in general. I would rather there be the ability to use Blender with Claude, the ability to use Affinity with Claude, than have AI buttons and stuff inside of, well, like Photoshop and Illustrator and all these different things. Like that was one of the reasons why I left Adobe. They just shoved so much stuff in there that I didn't want there, cluttering it up like buttons to do my work for me. And it never did a good enough job. So I think this is a better solution, but we're going to have to see what happens. It's pretty funny that YouWorkForThem removed the press release. Let me just click it one more time to make sure. Yeah, you can see the URL up here is what it should go to, but instead it just goes to their homepage. So kind of funny, but that's the way it goes, I guess. I have one update on new fonts before we get into the real new fonts, and that is on Action Grotesque. If you were here last episode, I talked about Action Grotesque and I was covering a ton of typefaces and I said up the front, like, it's going to be very casual. It's impossible for me to get too deep on like 15 or 18 fonts or whatever I covered. But I really struggle bust my way through Action Grotesque last week and it deserves better. I did reach out to Commercial Type this week and I was hopeful that I could get a review license. They didn't respond, so that's not going to happen. They do have a trial, but it's limited and I can't really do my work with that. But Action Grotesque is a typeface by Eric Van Blokland, and it is part of a bigger Action collection. There's Action Text, Action Condensed, and now there is Action Grotesque. I did not see this essay from Eric Van Blokland last week, but I'm not going to read through it. I'm literally just going to scroll through this super fast. But I did think it was really interesting, and I think that this gives a much better and much more concise and much clearer description of what this typeface is doing, because I was very confused last week. This is a typeface that is designed specifically for small sizes, It is a variable font. So with those two things in mind, this typeface was designed. He basically proofed it over and over and over and over. If you don't know, proofing means like you design it a little ways, and then you print it out or you look it out on screen and you see how it's working. Then you make adjustments. Then you do it again. Then you make adjustments. Then you do it again. So that's what he was doing with this. Some of the things that I thought were interesting was angular size. This is something that I've never heard before. It makes sense. You probably understand this concept when we get down here in 1 second. Angular size, it's the idea that a typeface can look the same like relative size depending on how far away the thing is. So a typeface could be equally small if it's very far away, even though the type is physically larger. So that's one thing to keep in mind when he was designing this. Like small fonts don't just mean teeny tiny fonts where the ink's gonna bleed and stuff like that. The other thing that I wanted to point out was he was looking at these on screen. So it really is like a screen first small font. And I thought that this section right here, again, read the article if you want to get into it. But I thought that this section right here was really interesting because I have noticed when I dual boot, so I boot into Windows 11 and Fedora 44. I've noticed that the text renders differently, and then also have my iPad, my iPhone, and an Android. But he's got 5 different examples right here. The bottom one there is the vector, how it looks when we look at it on a screen, nice and big, how it should, like how it's perfectly designed to look. The other 4 are screens. I think the top one was Mac. The second one there was like an iPhone. The third one was Windows. And then the bottom one there was another Mac. I don't remember what the screens are. They're on there. Doesn't matter. What I thought was interesting, though, on here that's kind of unrelated is if you look at the ease and weak, look at how they raster or how they render. They don't actually render exactly the same. He points this out, but even especially look at the Windows one where you can see all the different colors on here. All that sub-pixel hinting, what is it? Something like that. It's really interesting that they're doing stuff that doesn't seem to make sense because the E's down here at the bottom look exactly the same. So in my brain, when they render on the screen, they'll look exactly the same. Look at the A's as well. You can look at the A's in days and the A and A, and you can see that they're not the same either. And he points out that it's probably doing that to keep the space between the certain letters. So if you put this A here that has that little light pixel at the edge of the bowl there, if you put that on this one, you'd be slamming into the D there. And the Windows one's kind of got like a blue pixel in there. But the same with the E's. They're doing the same thing with the weak here. These look a little bit different between the two of them. So I thought that was really interesting. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But the overall story here is if you want the real story on Action Grotesque from Commercial Type by Eric Van Blockland. Go check out the links in the description. The essay from Eric is definitely worth checking out, even if you're not interested in buying the font, because he is incredibly intelligent and a master type designer. So if you're at all interested in how typefaces are designed, or if you are a type designer, go check that out because I love a purpose-built font, and it doesn't get much more purpose-built than like small size on a screen, variable first typeface. And that's what Action Grotesque is, and what I failed to concisely convey last week. Let's get into some new releases. I'm going to take my face off for this part because I don't want to block anything. I feel like these are more important, so go ahead and see you guys at the end of this. And I'm also going to close some tabs. Let's go ahead and close some of these. Did not mean to do that. Let's go ahead and close all of these, and then we'll get started. Have a nice clean starting point for the people watching the chapters. Okay, so new releases. Our first new release this week is coming from DJR, David Jonathan Ross, and this is May's Font of the Month. If you don't know, Font of the Month, you can subscribe, and each month you get a surprise new release from David Jonathan Ross. You can also purchase the typeface for $24. Excellent license on these, just excellent quality typefaces in general. Really cool. And I do have this one to test out. Haven't played around with it yet, but I do appreciate the license on here, and I did download the typeface. you can actually download the trial on this one for free too, and it's going to have the full fonts. You just can't use it for anything. But this is it. It is called, let me get back up to the top. Is my mouse going to work? It's called Megawarp, and it is the fifth entry in the Mega Font collection, I guess, maybe you would say. There are 4 others of these, and they are, I guess I can click through them super fast. There's Megabase, Megavolt, Megazoid, and Megascope. And let's go ahead and tile these real quick, and you can just get a super fast look at these. They are all taking one part. How does he says it? He says, each of the megafonts engages with an element of sans serif typography that has been embraced by the science fiction genre. So you can see these different ones here. They're all kind of related to some sci-fi typography. This Megazoid one, that's really cool. As you mouse over it, they push down. So I am not familiar with all of these other than just looking at them this week. But it does seem to be a cool collection. So maybe you're not interested in Megawarp today, but you might be interested in some of those. So that's where it's coming from. This one here is coming from a laser, how did he say it? Laser beam style fonts like you would see in Blade Runner. So if we look at this one here, if we look all the way down here at the bottom, this, I'm sure you've seen this before. This is pretty popular in the 80s. This is 1982 Blade Runner, that line going straight through it. He started out doing that laser beam type thing and then realized that it doesn't necessarily work that well. So in true DJR fashion, set his own rules for this. He set 3 different rules for how the lines could be introduced. I think maybe he calls them cuts. No, he calls them slices. So his 3 rules were: 1, a slice can't be arbitrary. It has to happen at some event in the letter form, like a stroke ending or intersection. Number 2, a letter must get sliced somewhere, unless the slice would make it indistinguishable from another letter. As we can see, the I in Solitude right there doesn't have a slice. Maybe it has a slice. No, it doesn't have a slice on it. And then 3, if possible to slice a letter in the upper left quadrant, do it. If not, slice it in the lower left quadrant. Strokes on the right side of the letter generally don't get a slice unless they need one. So you can see the A here, upper left quadrant, getting a slice right there. So if we go through these, you can see most of these are sliced in the upper left. Let's find one that's in the lower right. I don't know what this is. Oh, it's an E for emerge. That E would already have the slice right there, so that makes sense. Like he said, that's an event in the typeface that should have the slice. So you can see there is a sense of cohesiveness, and it seems like it all goes together rather than just slicing a line through it like you got in Blade Runner there. Like this line just goes through the middle of those uppercase N's and the U for what purpose? Just to look cool. That's fine. But you can see here the lines all kind of go in at a place that makes sense, which I think is really cool. And also I love this specimen, so let's just sit here and enjoy this for a second. But you can see metal prime, I don't know what that says, octet, force, retro, ignite. So not the most legible, but it is really, really cool. And you can download this trial for free. I think it's just a single style typeface on this one. But like I said, $24, excellent license on this. And then if you go to trial, you can get the trial for $0, and it is the full font. You can test this out, just don't use it for anything, obviously. And then if you want to buy it or you want to subscribe to Font of the Month, $24 for that. Not sure how much the club is, I forget. Let's go ahead and check. We checked, we've checked before, but I do not remember. It is billed annually, billed monthly, $6, billed annually, $72 paid now. So $6 a month. So instead of $24 for this, you could have got it for $6. That was Megawarp by DJR, and it was May's Font of the Month. Next up, we have a typeface from Maxitype. This one's a little more sober. So our second new release this week is System from Maxitype, and it probably looks pretty familiar. It is based on the Rail alphabet in Switzerland, and the Rail alphabet was based on Helvetica, with some elements borrowed from Accident's Grotesque, but then a lot of it was Helvetica. a lot of it was basically Helvetica. Let's just say that. If you know the Braille alphabet history, you'll know that it's a little bit complicated, but in the end, it's basically a typeface that was based on Helvetica with a little bit of accidents, grotesque mixed in. Look at all these icons, though. This one also has a full trial font, and I have not tested it out, but I very much want to. So this could very well be a deep dive next week, because I think this is one of the coolest typefaces we're going to look at today, even though it's basically, you know, another neo-grotesque, another Helvetica alternative, but not mad about it. I'm a fan. And they're doing some really interesting things here that I found particularly cool. And it's that this right here, you can see 1 millimeter matches 4 point exactly. 3 millimeters matches 12 point exactly. And it goes up 6, 9, 12 millimeters match 24, 36, and 48 respectively. I don't know exactly what problem this is solving, but it does seem useful. I just am not 100% sure how or why, other than the fact that you could easily know how big they're going to print. I guess that could be cool. I'm going to have to dig into this and find out. I think there's 90% chance we're going to be doing a deep dive on Maxitype's system next week. So I'll be pretty brief with this one right now, but there are 8 total styles on this, 4 weights plus italics. Getting into some body copy here. You can see how well this looks in body copy. And it looks like it's even got some different spacing on it. It says optimal and tight. Those must be the spacing. And you can see optimal is, I can't highlight it actually. I can't even click on it. The one that looks tight is probably the tight one. The one that looks optimal is probably the optimal one, if you can't read optimal and tight on there. But it does look like they've got some stylistic alternatives. So you can see the black ones are the default. The orange ones are the stylistic sets. So you've got an alternate 7 with a different stem on that. I'm not sure if you'd call that a stem or not. The J, it's got a hooked one, different Q, different B. So it looks like it's going to have quite a few alternates, which I think is pretty cool, and probably pays a little more homage to the actual Braille alphabet and you know, the mixing of Helvetica, accidents, grotesque, and doing some of its own thing, because they didn't just copy them. They heavily drew from them, but they weren't just copies. Let me see here. This is 480 Swiss francs for the family on desktop, which comes to about $430 in US for the full family on desktop. Look at these. They've got so many symbols, but you can even see the clocks in here. Can we zoom in on this? Ugh, we're going to break it. Just kidding. We'll have to look at these next week, these clock symbols and stuff. But those look like exactly like the train station clocks. That's really cool. Yeah, I love that. Oh, they've even got positive and negative on here. Can we get it to go to positive? There's some really cool stuff going on here, and I know I'm just kind of thinking out loud right now. The license in the end is pretty standard-ish. If you are below 20,000 followers, the desktop license will cover your social, but there is a lot of fine print on this one. So here's the 4 weights and the italics on top. I'm going to go back up to the top real quick while I do this license bit here. There is quite a bit of fine print on the desktop license. No logo, no slogan, no broadcast, no video games, no merch, no educational, religious, or politics. Those last 3, I think you need prior approval on. They're not included in desktop. And so at some point you have to ask yourself, what exactly can I do with my desktop license? And to that, I say, I don't know. Print a business card, I guess. So don't love the license on this one. I'll have to dig into it a little bit more, but I do really appreciate the typeface. It does seem like they put a lot of care and attention into this. I'm a fan of the Braille alphabet. I'm a fan of anything that is making, you know, Helvetica better, because Helvetica is cool. It's iconic, but it's not perfect. And I love to see how different foundries put their spin on the neo-grotesque. So this was System from Maxitype. Oops. Next up, we've got one from PSTL, and PSType Lab actually had a dual release this week. Let me go ahead and see if we can get the other one on here. Here's Spent right here. We looked at this last week, but that's not what we're going to look at today. This one actually released on Monday along with Detail. So our third new release this week is Detail from PSTL, PSType Lab. Compared to Spent, which we looked at last week, it's much more characterful. It's saying, this here says, Detail is a devilishly clever type family of 8 weights, 16 italic style or 16 static styles, or 2 variable fonts. So there's a separate variable font for italic and Roman, or upright in this case, I guess. But there are 8 weights and then 8 italics to match. But let's just scroll through this and see how it looks, because I think that it's got a lot of character. The E's really stand out to me, that curve in the E. I think at the thinner weights, it's more striking or more characterful than at the heavier weights. At the heavier weights, you kind of almost get like not a ball terminal, but almost a ball terminal for the crossbar, which is pretty interesting. He's pointing out a few of the different points here. Obviously, this is rounded. You've got the rounded edges on it. PS Type Lab always does some great specimens, so let's go ahead and click through these. Love the little devil guy down there. Mischievous where it matters. Usefully unordinary. That's a great slogan right there, or a great description of this typeface. Usefully unordinary. I do feel like this could be a very useful typeface. It seems to be well developed, man, these are some fun specimens, aren't they? And I like specimens too that actually show you something, that don't just look cool. They're showing off some of the neat features to it and things like that. So right here it says, Detail is a rounded type family from PSTL that balances warmth and structure with a personality that reveals itself over time. I would agree with that. There's clearly, oh, look at that. Does it have some alternates? I wonder if that E is actually an alternate, that plain one right there. Do I have a full trial for this? No, there are no trials on this one. Wah, wah. Mark, please give us some trials. PSTL is on Adobe fonts. This one is not on Adobe fonts yet, but it might end up there one day. But yeah, there are no trials on this, unfortunately. I would love to test this out. Might reach out to them for a review license, but we will see. It looks like we've got some alternates right here. There they are. Nice. So the gray ones on here are alternates, so you can get a little bit more traditional E on there, a little more traditional K, and a little more traditional Y and F and X. So you can sober this up a little bit. I think that would be great at some of the lighter sizes if you wanted to use this for body copy as well, because I do think you could probably get away with some body copy with this one if you swapped out some of those more characterful glyphs. Man, that's cool. You couldn't just type that out and do that. Obviously, you'd have to do that yourself. But this is a very, very nice typeface. And I would love to play around with this one. Not sure that we will, but I think even just this look at it right here it shows when I see a lot of specimens like this, and I see so much care put into the specimens, like Mark always does. Mark Canesso, PS Type Lab. Always great specimens on here. I'm not sure if he does them himself or he has someone else do them, but Please was one of my favorite typefaces just based on the specimens alone. This one here it even goes further. So we're just going to get into, the glyphs and stuff here at the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and go back up to the top. This was 364 for the family on desktop, and it's okay unless you use Canva. Let me see if we can find the buy button and I can show you real quick. If you use Canva, you're probably not going to be a fan of this license, because if you get this for desktop, you can see, why is it just a single font? Let's go ahead and get the whole collection. You can see, okay, $3.99. I had my price wrong. Maybe there used to be a discount. $3.99 for the full family on desktop. But if you want to use this on Canva, boom, doubles your price, $7.98. That sucks, and you cannot just get desktop, or you cannot just get Canva. It says right here, even though it's letting me click Canva without that, it probably shouldn't let you do that. It says this is an add-on extension license and requires a desktop license. So if you want to use this on Canva, you can't. I don't use Canva, so that doesn't bother me, but also that kind of sucks. I don't know why it's like that, because let's say I don't want to use it on desktop. I only literally want to use it on Canva. Why can't I do that? Why do I have to pay for desktop? I don't know. That's a weird thing to me. It's a weird thing to me that I can use this for the desktop. I can use it on Affinity. I can use it in Adobe, but I can't use it in Canva. I don't use Canva, so like I said, I don't really care that much, but I do think that's kind of a bitter pill to swallow, and doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I would be open to hearing what the logic is behind that, but don't love that. So I'm going to point it out. In general, though, I think this is a great typeface. It looks really, really fun. A variable font, 8 weights plus italics. It looks great, and it looks exactly how like it says, mischievous where it matters, and usefully unordinary. So another great release from PS Type Lab. That one is Detail. We are halfway through our new releases. We've got 2 in a row here from Heavyweight. So our 4th new release this week, and our first from Heavyweight of 2, first of 2 from Heavyweight, is called Clin. And this one here is their contemporary interpretation of Franklin Gothic. Per usual with these types of things, I don't think that it's, typically they're doing their own types of things. I think that it says that the strokes are straighter and the contrast is more moderate. You can immediately see that with the more moderate contrast. There's almost, at first glance, there's like no contrast in this. When you start to look at it a little bit closer, you can see the pieces and parts, the joints and the crossbars and things like that have some more contrast in them with the A and the E. But it's a pretty low contrast typeface, and I think that's going to be pretty appealing to some people. It looks really, really nice. This is another one that I don't love the license on, but I'll skip complaining about that one just because I don't want to get too far into it. Rolix, I see you in chat. But yeah, so it looks great in body copy. It looks great for headlines. It's based on Franklin Gothic, so it's going to look great if you like Franklin Gothic, which I personally do. There are a lot of great Franklin Gothic options out there, but this one does have a full trial, and it also has a web trial. So try it out. Download it, test it to your heart's desire. The trial button is right there. It's super easy to get. But I'm going to go back up to the top here. I think if you're familiar with Franklin Gothic, or just, you're looking at the typeface with your 2 eyeballs or 1 eyeball right now, you get an idea of what's going on with this one. It's a nice looking sans serif. I think Franklin Gothic, it's called Gothic, but I think it would be a Grotesque, right? One thing that I like about Heavyweight Type is that they put the details up here, and this makes it easy for me to do my reporting, but it also makes it easy for you to just look at the screen and see what you're going to get. You can see the designers, which is really cool. You can see who did some of the production work on it, the font engineering, but you can see the number of glyphs. This has 1,091 glyphs, 10 styles. This has italics, right? Or does it not? Yeah, 5 weights plus italics, but I'm not seeing any italics on here. Am I crazy? Maybe it's just, oh yeah, there they are right there. It has italics, but they literally didn't show them off one time on here, did they? Let me slow scroll through this all the way back up. That's funny that they didn't show off any of the italics on here, even though it has them. Oh, there we go. There's some italics right here. I'm blind. So there's our italics right there. 5 weights plus matching italics, coming out to 10 total styles. This is a variable font. And like I said, 1,091 glyphs, 35 open, or no, not 35 open type features. I didn't mark down my features on this. I apologize. They're listing 35 languages. I would bet that it's way more than that. I tested on Hyperglot and it had 377 languages, but I don't necessarily trust Hyperglot anymore, even though I talked about it a few episodes ago. So Heavyweight Digital Type Foundry. I think this is a really nice release. Franklin Gothic with straighter strokes, less contrast, and it seems to be very well developed. And it seems to be quite deep as well, with over 1,000 glyphs. This is another one that I did download and I tested for a second, but didn't do a deep dive on it. It's possible we could do it. I could see it being fun to take this and look at it alongside some other Franklin Gothic alternatives, or just Franklin Gothic in general. So if that's something you'd be interested in seeing, let me know in the comments or in chat. I'm going to respond to chat real quick. I'm going to respond to chat real quick, and then we're going to look at the second new release from Heavyweight Type. Let me put my face on the camera. Let's see here. Rolix said, I need some advice from you on design. Currently, I'm lacking on it. Lacking on it. It says, brother, I'm very bad at type. Like I use maybe very basics like Poppins, Helvetica, Grotesque, Roboto, Instrument Serif, and like that. So I'm not sure what the question is, But there's nothing wrong with going with the basics. A well-designed font will do a lot of the work for you. If you're using professional software, go download Affinity. I'm not sure. Maybe you're using Affinity or you're using Adobe. Affinity is free now, so go get Affinity if you're not using it. But there's nothing wrong with using basic fonts. If a typeface is well designed, it's gonna look, it's gonna do most of the job for you. Then you have to do your hierarchy and stuff like that. If you're looking for advice from me on books to go look for typography, I would say, start with Ellen Lupton's Thinking with Type. It's the book that you get in your Type 101 class. There are some others that I can recommend after this, but that's the one that I would start with. I would start with Thinking with Type by Ellen Lupton. And then I would be hesitant to look at a lot of videos on YouTube, the graphic design videos, because a lot of them aren't super high quality. But yeah, I mean, you could do that. Check Reddit. Reddit, a lot of people ask the same questions. They ask what books to look for. Reddit has some very good advice on that. Some of the books are kind of hard to find, but check the graphic design Reddit and check typography. If you have a specific question though, go ahead and expand and I'll try to answer it a little bit better. But there's nothing wrong with using Poppins and Helvetica. There's nothing wrong with using Roboto. I use Roboto for all of, let me go ahead and switch my screen here. Boom, 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 boom. Screen cap. I use Roboto for all of this stuff here. This is Roboto. I use Roboto. I don't care. Roboto is a great font. People can hate on it because it's not, because it was used for Android and things like that. Let me go pull up my thumbnail real quick. This is all Roboto down here. Why do I use Roboto? Because I'm dealing with a lot of international stuff and I need a typeface that can do everything, that I know it's going to support all the languages. If there's a name in whatever language it is that I need to type it out, I can do that. Also, it's just got a ton of versatility to it. You're going to have a ton of weights with these types of fonts. You're going to be able to expand the width, make it skinnier, or make it more condensed. I don't hate that. I don't have a problem with those basic typefaces. I think the one thing I would say is that if you're trying to get a little bit better, or if you're trying to find more typefaces, obviously you could subscribe and watch the show. I talk about new typefaces every single week. But if you want to know a roadmap, I went to design school, so that was kind of how I did it. Do I think you have to? No, I don't think you have to. But I would start out with books. That's what I would do. Honestly, I would look at typography books, and then yeah, that would be where I would start. Honestly, I would look at typography books to start, and look at Reddit and look for the books that are recommended on there. Because despite all of Reddit's shortcomings, there are some really good recommendations in the subreddit there. Places that you can go and be part of type communities. Typo.social is on Mastodon. Follow Type Foundries on Instagram. I wouldn't follow so many graphic designers and stuff like that. It's cool to see what they're doing, but if you want to learn more about typography, go directly to the source. Yeah, there's some good stuff on YouTube. Don't let me take you down. It's not 100% my cup of tea, but Pimp My Type, he does a lot of very beginner friendly and a lot of font recommendations. He puts out a newsletter every Friday, I think, or maybe it's every other week. And he talks about a new typeface that he likes. I think he does a good job with that kind of stuff. So Pimp My Type on YouTube is a great channel to check out if you want to get into type. But yeah, check out Ellen Lupton's Thinking with Type, and it's going to plant so many seeds that you'll figure out what direction to go in next. I have 2 reviews about Ellen Lupton's Thinking with Type. So if you don't want to wait, you can leave this right now and go watch those. Go watch there's a shorter one first, and then you can watch the longer one. I literally flipped through the entire book so you can get an idea of what's going on in it. But that would be my starting point, 100%. Go start out with Thinking with Type by Ellen Lupton. It's pretty affordable, and it's got a lot of good information on it. If you can't afford anything, it is online. You can find it online, digital versions of it. Okay, Rolex, I appreciate it. I'm going to get back to the new releases, but if you have more questions or anything, go ahead and ask. Our second new release from, let me switch my camera. Our second new release from Heavyweight and our fifth new release of the week is called Beaujon. Hopefully I'm saying that right. It's French. Beaujon. Beaujon? No, let me check. Beaujon. I didn't say it right. Let's start over for the people watching chapters. Our fifth new release and our second coming out of Heavyweight Type Foundry is Beaujon. And the description up here, as the name suggests, is an homage to French Renaissance printing types and the research of Beatrice Ward. If you've heard Beatrice Ward's name before, you probably heard it in relation to the Crystal Goblet. Interesting piece of writing from Beatrice Ward. I don't know that I still agree with it, but it did kind of set the tone, and it's a great piece of writing. And when you think about body copy, and obviously she was incredibly intelligent about typography. So it references Garamond and Vendôme. And I think when you look at this, you can kind of see that. So it's an old school typeface, old style Garamond, Vendôme, serif typeface. It's bracketed, as you can see there, but it's got very sharp points on it, similar to Vendôme. And this is another one that has a full desktop or full trial on it, and I think could be really cool to check out side by side. When you see that via Vendôme right there, you can really recognize the influence there. This one has 22 total styles because this has display and text versions of the typeface. So it's going to have the ones that look great big and the ones that look great small. Display has 14 total styles, 7 weights plus italics. Text has 8 styles, 4 weights plus italics, which I think is perfect. For text, you really don't need to be getting super light and super heavy. You just need your basics. 4 weights plus italics is perfect for text. And I think we're even seeing the text versus the display right here. So I'm pretty sure this regular on the left here is the display and the regular on the right is text, because you can see how much less contrast there is on the left here, and how much easier that is to read. The display ones are going to look great. I'm not sure which one this one is because it just says regular, but this looks like it's going to have a ton of classy letters. Obviously, it's got true italics on it, as all of these old style Garamond, Vendôme style typefaces are going to have, and you can see the italics look beautiful, very calligraphic, very human. But yeah, this looks, it looks like the description states. So similar to how Clin looked like an evolution of Franklin Gothic, Beaujon looks like some kind of blend between Garamond and Vendôme. And I think that this could be another excellent one to do a deep dive on. So if this is one that you guys think would be interesting, again, leave a comment and let me know. And then here you're just seeing the different weights of it, the different styles for the text and the display. This is an interesting one that I've never seen before. Rather than calling it hairline, they're calling this Beaujon Razor and Beaujon Razor Italic. I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, it looks nice and it looks pretty deep. And like I mentioned at the top of this, you can see the number of glyphs at the top. So 956 glyphs on this one. I think I dropped this in. Yeah, I did drop this one into What Can My Font Do? 956 relates to the Roman. Italic actually has a little bit more. Italic has 987 glyphs. So that's probably going to have some swashes and things like that, which is really fun. They've got language support on here for 282 languages. So I think that this one here for Clin was probably a typo when they typed 35, because it probably has way more language support than they're stating in that. But yeah, I think this one looks very nice. I think it looks exactly how they describe it. And it's cool to see someone doing something other than, another neo-grotesque. So this is Beaujon from Heavyweight Digital Type Foundry. Okay, I am going to respond to chat, and we're going to get into this last new release. It's going to be the free one, so stick around. Rolex says, well, I use Adobe and got pretty comfortable with it. With these weight things are not on it, I guess. Or is it? Yes. Adobe, if you use Adobe, perfectly fine. I use Adobe for like a decade. It does have all the weights and stuff like that. So just like any other font, you know, you can do all the different weights over. You can do all this stuff. Anything you can do in Affinity for typography, you can do in Adobe. So you're going to be able to do the variable stuff. You're going to be able to do the different weights. You're going to be able to do the different condensed stuff and things like that. So for that, yeah, just look up specifically what you want to do. Sorry, I was looking at Affinity as I was talking. If there's something specific about Adobe, I'm not sure how the manuals and stuff are now. I'm not sure if the help has gotten better. But if there's something specific about Adobe that you want to do, that's what I would check out. Also, Adobe puts out a ton of content. It's kind of overloads your YouTube subscription feed if you subscribe to the channel. But if you go to the Adobe channel and then you just search for typography, there's a ton of live streams and stuff like that. They have a lot of brand ambassadors and things where it's just like individuals that talk about stuff on there. There's some really useful stuff that they do publish. It's kind of hard to dig through, but if you just Google exactly what you want to know, type in typography in Adobe Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator, InDesign, and you'll find someone that gives you the right answers for that. That's an easy problem to solve if you don't know how to find those different things. That's an easy one. It has it. Don't worry. Okay, let's get into this last new release. This one's coming from Brandon Nickerson, and it is free to download right now. Okay, our 6th new release this week is coming from Brandon Nickerson, and per usual, in the launch window of the typeface, until the next typeface releases, this one is free to download. He did start doing a new thing here where he encourages you to support them support him for $2 to get the font, which I think is completely reasonable. But you can still click this download free button right here, and it's going to pop up and take you over to Google Drive and just let you download it. One thing you could do is just go ahead and download it for free, test it out, and see if it's something that you want to pay for, and then you can always support later. But either way, go get it now while it's $2 or it's free, because eventually it will go up to $45. A lot of times he does have sales and things like that, but it's always nice to have free fonts, even if you don't necessarily need them right now. This is a Blackletter font. If you couldn't tell, it is called BN Blacklettra, and you know, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a Blackletter typeface. I think it looks really nice. Some of these on here, you know, are being shown alongside of it. They are not Blackletter, or they're not included in this typeface, obviously, but it looks pretty cool. I don't cover all of Brandon Nickerson's typeface releases anymore because some of them start to bleed together and they all kind of look the same. This one looks completely different. Can we make this bigger? Oh, we could kind of flip through them like this. This one looks completely different from all of his other releases, and I think it looks really nice. With any of these typefaces, you're not going to be super deep, so just one style. It's static, obviously. 210 glyphs, just 2 open type features on this one, but you know, it's free. There's no trial because you don't need it, but you could download it for $2 if you wanted to support the Foundry, or you could download it for free if you want to test it out and maybe support later. But it looks really nice. I mean, I'm not even like a huge Blackletter fan, but this looks really, really nice. And you can see all the glyphs right here. That's probably not all 210 of them, but you can get a good look at it. Look at it, got some decent language support on here. I have 221 written down, but again, I don't always trust Hyperglot, even though that is kind of my only option for looking these up at this point. But per usual, Brandon Nickerson always knocks out of the park these specimens, and he went above and beyond with BN Blacklettra here, and broke out of some of his typical templates that he does. So I am really a fan of this one, and especially because it's free, and I love to be able to tell you guys there's a free font you can go download. This is obviously going to be very use case specific. It's not every day that you can use a Blackletter typeface, but I could definitely see for the right brand or for the right project, this would look incredible. Yeah, so that is BN Blacklettra from Brandon Nickerson, and you can go get it for free right now. Okay, we're gonna get into some special coverage of the Designers Foundry. I'm gonna get a big drink of water because it's gonna be a big section. So Last week, I talked about this web page right here. Let's go ahead and max this out so we can see. I always forget if it's F12 or F11. Let's take a risk. F11. Got it. I pointed this out last week. Let's see if I can get my mouse on here again. There it is. This is a really fun website dedicated to the works in progress fonts that TDF, the Designers Foundry, just launched. I went through this last week, so I'm not going to go too deep, but it's basically like an old school Mac interface, and you can kind of click on things and pop them open. And it's got some graphics and stuff. This Stages Explain thing is pretty cool. I like that. But today we are here to look at the fonts. So we're going to do, I'm hesitant to call them deep dives, but we're kind of doing do some deep dives on these four. We'll just call them deep dives. We're going to do some special coverage, some deep dives on these four new releases. These are all beta fonts, so keep that in mind because they're not going to be quite as deep as the typical deep dives. We'll just call this special coverage. We'll call it special coverage. But some things I want to point out just in general before we get into the four typefaces. I like that that it has this little development progress over here on the left. It's really nice. You can see this one has 4 out of 5, 3 out of 3 out of 3 out of 3 out of 5. If we go to a different typeface, so that one's TDF Sans. If we go down to, let's do Wondest. These got different ones here. Overall completion is 4 out of 5, whereas TDF Sans was 3 out of 5. I like that just so you can kind of see where they're at in the process, and it'll make sense how far they've gotten along when we get into these. Let's just look at Noxy here. The other thing I like about this is that front and center, they have the designer on here. So these are all coming from the Designers Foundry, but all four of these have a different designer. And unlike some other type foundries that don't want to let you know who the designer is, I know they're few and far in between, but they do exist. I like that there's a little bio on here and not just the name. It says, it just kind of makes you feel a little bit more connected to it. So for Oliver here, it says, a Berlin-based type designer with over 15 years of experience, blah, blah, blah. It's fun to kind of get a little insight into like where the person's from, what else they're working on, what they like to do, and then maybe see how that builds into the typeface. So those are the things that I like about it. The short bios and things like that. I do wish the specimens were a little bit easier to view. If we go into one of these, we'll just go to Caltrop. This is going to be the last one we look at. But these right here, I don't like these carousels. I point this out quite often. I don't like these carousels. I want to be able to scroll through these things. There is a gallery button here that I think would solve this problem, but unfortunately it doesn't work for me. I'm not sure if it's just my browser. I'm on Vivaldi. I turned off my ad blocker, still doesn't work. So I would prefer that, but just in general, this is what's going on. Type Designers Foundry launched works in progress fonts. They're all betas. You get free updates as they progress. I'm gonna go ahead and turn my face on because I feel like the screen is a little bit empty right now. As these typefaces progress, you're gonna get free updates to all of them. So similar to future fonts, if you buy in now, some of these are as cheap as like $10, I think. I think this one is, let me see. This one is $10. So some of them are as cheap as $10, and they're going to end up getting expanded just like future fonts do, and you're going to get all the updates for free. So if you want to invest early, if you want to get them cheaper while they're in beta and then get the full font later for free, that would be why this exists. It helps support projects while they're in process, and then it also gives you a bit of a discount for doing that. So I'm going to go ahead and get into, as I put on chapstick, I'm going to go ahead and get into these deep dives, this special coverage. And I'm going to take my face back off because I'm feeling a little self-conscious here. See you guys at the end. I see you, Rolex. I don't. Message me. You can message me on Instagram, and then I can kind of see what you're talking about a little bit better. Okay, so our first typeface in these TDF works in progress is going to be TDF Sans, and it is designed by Ethan Nakasche. Hopefully I'm saying that right. I don't speak French, so I'm probably saying it wrong. Paris-based French type designer, releasing typefaces with Blaze Type, had a bunch of different type foundries that he'd worked with. But this one here was designed specifically for an upcoming redesign of their website. So as the name suggests, TDF Sans is the Type Designers Foundry Sans. It's going to be their brand typeface, and it does seem like it's going to be used for the UI. Currently, they're using Halissa. I'm not sure which one it is. I did not ask Daniel McQueen. I did not ask why they're switching away from Halissa. There it is right there. Because this is pretty deep. I'm not sure if it's Halissa or Halissa, but Halissa over here is a neo-grotesque. TDF Sans is going to be a geometric sans serif, but it says, the brief was simple to create a clean, neutral, geometric sans without baggage. So maybe there's a bit of a feeling that this has a little bit of baggage to it. That would be an interesting conversation to have, but not one that I had. So I can't say too much more than this is the font they were using. TDF Sans is going to be the font that they are using in the future. And let's go ahead and get into Affinity, and we'll take a look at this. One style currently, it's static, 498 glyphs, so pretty well developed, 17 open type features. Like I said, available from the Foundry, just $10 on desktop, and a very good license on this one. It's perpetual, specifically states that you can use it for social and logos, and I love to see that. We're going to do our typical thing here. We're going to look at these A to Z real quick, and then I'll give you a look at it in body copy, compare it to some other typefaces, and we will move on to the next one. You can see this G here very much fitting into that geometric sans serif classification. I've got a few different glyphs on here that are green. Those are going to be ones that have alternates to them, but I don't think anything here is going to necessarily be too surprising. If someone told you a clean, neutral geometric sans serif, this is probably what you'd picture. You'd probably picture something like Avenir, something like Gotham, and that's more or less what you're getting. You can see the A there. They're going to have the schoolbook A. This one does have a little bit more contrast than some of those that I just mentioned. You can see the pinching, quite a bit of pinching there on the B and the D, where those join the stem, where the bulls hit the stem. Interesting F here, nice and straight on top. But yeah, I don't, like I said, I don't think there's anything here that's super crazy or groundbreaking, but when you're talking about a UI font to be able to use on the redesign of the website, I think this is exactly what you want. You want something that's going to kind of fade into the background, but that you can make your own and is just for you. So TDF Sans, this looks like it's off to a great start. I like that one there. That's kind of interesting. Let's get into some of these alternates, and then I'll show you some features. You can see that slash there. You probably guessed that that's going to mean there's fractions. And yes, there are, but let me go ahead and switch to this typography tab, and I'll show you some stylistic alternatives. The K, you can see, let me click on this first. These are called the expressive style set. So they're all going to be on or off at once. So as you can see here, the green ones there, they're not individually set in the typeface. That could change. I would imagine these could be individually set with alternatives when the full typeface releases. This is going to hopefully have, they did have a timeline on this. This is going to end up having 12 total styles. So it's going to have 6 weights plus italics. And that's scheduled to be done at the end of July this year. So in just under 2 months, you should be seeing a full typeface on this. So if it is something you like, $10 now is going to be much cheaper than whatever the final price on this ends up being. We can see the R and the Q here changing to something a little more expressive. So I do think that that tag is quite fitting. Let's just go ahead and look at, now we'll head and zoom in on these. We got the A here. I don't know how much more expressive this A is, but it is simpler. And each time I always point out, when we go from 2-story to 1-story A, it does match your ABC much better. So for logos and things like that, I think that can be nicer for the cohesive nature. For legibility, readability, the 2-story A is always going to be more legible. We got the G and K here. I think we can do these both at once. Getting the G that gets the 3-story, gets the little ear on it, and then the K here goes to something more similar to like a Frutiger or an Avenir K, and that's going to match the uppercase. So if we switch both of these, they both switch. You got the arm meeting the leg, or the leg meeting the arm, and the default, and then the expressive gives you that more Frutiger K on there, which is very nice to see. As far as features that are built into this right now, we do have fractions. Love to see it. And it's not just 1/2, 1/3. You can make whatever fraction you want. But for now, those are the features that I think are worth pointing out. Let's see how this one looks on body copy. Rolex, I see you. I appreciate it. I will respond to you for sure. Typography on Wikipedia. So this is just the Wikipedia article. This is what I use to test the body copy out. I think that it looks fine for the headline. You're probably not going to use your regular weight for headlines on here. And honestly, I think you could probably do the, I think you could swap out. I had the expressive stuff turned on by default. I think you could swap those out. Probably looks better without the expressive stuff. I think that 2-story G, I don't know. There's something weird about it. It doesn't, it feels a little light or something maybe. I'm not sure. It seems fine. It seems fine, but I like this one better. Body copy looks good already. This is a beta. This is only one style. I did switch for the entirety of 55 episodes before this. I'd always use the baseline grid. I switched and I turned off the baseline grid. So if you don't know baseline grid, it's going to line it up to, I don't know how to describe it other than this. It's going to line it up to a perfect grid. In any sort of text, you're probably going to want to use a baseline grid. But I had a thought this week that maybe that's not being very fair to the typefaces. Maybe I should just show you what their default leading or line spacing is on these, and then just let you see what their default is. So by default, this is what they've got. They're doing a 45 point with a 56 point leading on it. My baseline grid was 60, so really not too far off. Anyway, that's besides the point. You can see it's got good color. There's nothing that stands out as far as like dark spots or light spots. It's got a good color to it. I probably would increase the leading on this a little bit. I wouldn't do anything too crazy, but the more you can spread it out, especially in digital, the better I think that it's going to look. But as a default, this looks fine. And I think it does look good in body copy. So I think this will probably work very well on their website. I mentioned Avenir and I mentioned Gotham. So let's go ahead and look at these all three together. TDF Sans in the middle, Avenir on top, and Gotham on bottom. And you can see it's not really pulling from either one of these particularly. If you look at the lowercase a in Avenir and the lowercase a in Gotham, it looks nothing like the lowercase a in TDF Sans. This TDF Sans A almost looks more like a Helvetica A or something. It's got that serpentine, it's got that backwards S in the A there, which I like to see. I don't mind the other kind, but I do like to see that. And I think it works well with the extra contrast that this one has. So I mentioned before, there's a little bit more contrast for a geometric sans serif, and you can see how much the B and the D are pinching right there. Let me go ahead and compare this to our standards here with the B and the D here. And there is some slight contrast in this, but you can see how much different that is between these two right here. So compared to some of your standards like Avenir and Gotham, you're going to have some more contrast in it. But overall, it's drawing from some of those things. The traditional K here is like the Gotham K down here, whereas the expressive K, I promise this will be the last time that I zoom in and out like this. The expressive K here, like I mentioned before, is similar to the Frutiger K. This has got a tiny crossbar in it, but I think that's fine. It's similar to this Frutiger K in Avenir. So you're seeing some stuff pulled from historical resources and things like that, but it's definitely doing its own things. And it's nowhere near, a revival or anything like that. So I do think that they've put their own spin on a geometric sans serif. It's a difficult thing to do, but I think this is going to work really well for them as a website typeface, which is what it's being designed for. So we've only got one weight right now. We've only got one style. We don't even know what the italics look like. When this releases for real, I'm not going to go through every single update, but when this releases for real, I will go ahead and give you a fuller look at this, or at least announce it and go through the weights and what's changed. But this was TDF Sans by Ethan Nakasche. Hopefully, I don't know how to say Ethan's name. TDF Sans from the Designers Foundry, and this was the first beta on the new works in progress. Next up, we are going to be looking at Noxy. Let me get a drink of water. Check chat. Rolex, I do not recognize those fonts off the top of my head, but I can definitely look those up. Not a problem at all. I love to get recommendations though. So if those are the typefaces you like, I will definitely look them up off camera, even if I never mention it again. Anytime someone mentions typefaces on in the live stream, I always look them up. So for anybody in the future who wants to know, I always look up typefaces when they're recommended. Okay, so our second work in progress from the Designers Foundry is called Noxy, and this one is by Oliver Jeschke. Hopefully that's kind of right. Berlin-based designer. We talked about this earlier. 15 years of experience in developing typefaces. This one here is doing some interesting things that I will let you decide if they're working or not. But the biggest thing here, so I'll go ahead and read the description. It says, this design explores a refined classical structure with a contemporary precision. You can see it's basically a high contrast, similar to Bodoni or Dido, but modernized. It's doing some of its own things, but it fits into that high contrast serif typeface classification. It says distinguished by prominent integration of alpha and chi characters. So I'm going to show you what this means. You can see the X right here. The X, that's going to be the chi. Those being integrated really is the defining feature of this. And once again, the specimens are here, but they're a little difficult to look through. You can see that this one has 6 total weights. Do I have this wrong? It looks like it's actually got more. 1, 2, it's got 6 weights plus italics. I might have written that down wrong. I'm gonna have to look, but you can see it does have true italics on it. Let's go ahead and get this into Affinity. And I can give you some details on it because I've got everything right here. We're gonna do different spreads for the apologize, for the Roman and the sans serif. I have written down 6 styles here. Let me check to see if that's right. That's actually wrong. Okay, so there's 6 different weights on this. There are 12 styles, not 23. 12 styles on this. I apologize. There are 12 styles. There's going to be 6 Roman, 6 italic, and then 6 weights of each of those. So this is it right here. Let me go ahead and give you some details. The Designers Foundry, Oliver Jeschke, 12 total styles. Like I said, static. This one might have variable. I think it's just static. 409 glyphs, 427 in the italics, 10 open type features, like I said, available from the Foundry. No trial on any of these for the works in progress, but they are very affordably priced. So, and they have very, very good license, like I said before. $50 for the family on desktop. This one is further along. So the last one was 1 style for $10. You're going to end up getting 10 total styles with that one. But this one here already has 12 styles. So $50 for the full family on desktop. It's gonna be 6 Roman, 6 italic. Let's go ahead and zoom in on this. And you'll probably notice, let me check. Let me do the weights for you. You're probably gonna notice what I was talking about here. So going from regular, no, I think I do just have 6 weights right now. I have regular, medium, and bold. So what I said before, holds. There are actually 6 styles right now. I think the final should have 12. We're gonna look at these 6 today. So there's regular, there's medium, and there's bold. We are going to look at these a little bit closer up at the end of this section right here, because one interesting thing is that the contrast increases obviously as you get heavier, but the thin weights actually get thinner, which I found very strange. So let's go ahead and zoom in on this on the regular weight. Let me double check that I've got this on the regular weight. Apologize, a little messy right now. Okay, that's the regular weight. Let's go ahead and zoom in on this. And I think there's some interesting stuff going on here. Compared to some of the other D-dones, which we're gonna look at here at the end, this one's much more boxy. See how boxy this D is? Almost like a super ellipse or something like that. The G's still pretty round, but compared to the G's in a typical D-done, it's quite boxy. It's doing some interesting stuff with these Ks. The lowercase k also has that same characteristic. So I love to see that they're matching. I don't know that that's for me, but that's fine. Not everything is for everybody. And I can still appreciate a typeface even if I don't see myself using it. Not to say that I don't see myself using this, but there are some things that I don't love about it. I do like a lot of this typeface. I do like a lot of it. So I'm going to have some complaints. One is going to be this alpha for the A right here. Because while that is a defining feature, it ends up being a little distracting. So let's ignore that for now. But I love the general structure of this, the anatomy of the type, the contrast, the cohesiveness of it. Like these lines, these tall ascenders on here. It just looks really nice. It looks really, it's like a modern. I hate that these D-dones, that's why I always say D-dones. I hate that D-dones are titled or classified as moderns in a lot of textbooks because, what does that even mean? Here's the chi and the X there, and you'll note that it looks pretty italic. I'll just go ahead and give you a spoiler before we look at these numbers. The A here and the X here more or less retain their characteristics. You do have true italics in a lot of this, do you? Yeah, some of it. But these are typically characteristics that you would see more in italics. So it is interesting to see them here. Unfortunately, I don't think they work incredibly well in body copy, but I'll get to that at the end. I like this too. That's a lot of fun. I like all these numbers, to be honest. The 4 with the serif on the back end of it. All of these numbers just look really, really great. That's probably my favorite part of this typeface, if I'm being honest, is the numbers and the overall structure. I do think the vibe of this is great. Let me show you the italics. I did initially think that this A and the V that we're going to look at here in a second would be a problem because they're so slanted. I think they work a little better than I initially thought that they might. You can see you got a little calligraphic swash on the bottom of that Q for the italic. But you can see how slanted the V and the W are. Very, very slanted there. And just to go through the lowercase here. I don't think there's going to be too many surprises here. It is interesting that the E retains that sort of, that same sort of contrast. It's a very straight line going down that left side there. I like to see it. It's something different. It's kind of fun. Matches the O here, the P, the Q, it's retaining all of that. Oh, that V, that V is kind of weird, isn't it? Huh. I don't know what the solution is. But the V kind of threw me for a loop. The first thing I noticed in the typeface, even before I noticed the alpha and the chi, is this Y. I don't think I've ever seen a Y like that. And it's kind of neat, but we'll look at it in body copy and you can let me know what you think. So that's that. Like I said, each one of these has 3 different weights. We looked at those briefly. I wanted to show you this because my initial thoughts on the italic V and W, I wanted to show you these concerns. The V here, I think that the natural, you could obviously kern this in a little bit tighter. Oh, shoot, I hit the window key on accident. Hold on. Shoot. Hold on 1 second. I accidentally hit the Windows key instead of the Alt key to kern these in. So you could kern this in tighter with the V and the O here if you really wanted to get under that. But I think the default kerning isn't bad. So I'm just going to go ahead and let you see that. The T and the U there, that could get worked on. But again, these are all betas. So I don't think the V necessarily causes the problems that I thought it might. I think you're almost always going to have a vowel after the V. So you're looking at A, E, I. Ooh, the I could be a problem, huh? Yeah, if you were doing violin, I don't know what you're going to do there. I don't know what you're going to do right there if you wanted to put violin in. Huh. E, I, O, U. Yeah, everything else works, just not that I, huh? Yeah, so I do think that V could cause problems. You're probably gonna have to find some sort of alternate for that. The other thing I wanted to point out was there's not gonna be too many times where you're doing like, ABBA is such like a very specific use case. You would need to italicize in all caps like this, but there is that chance where you might need to do it. And if we put this in italics, you do get kind of an ugly gap between that. You get a great gap between the A and the B right here, but then suddenly you have this giant empty negative space there that there's no way to fix. So just something to look at, and you can kind of get a hint at that why what I'm going to look at there. But I do think in general this is a really fun, unique take on it. So despite my criticisms, I do think that this is a fun one to look at, even if it might not be for me. This here is the contrast. Let me get a drink of water. I'm actually running out of water. We got 2.5 months left to go. Okay, so these are the 3 different weights in italic. I do think I'm trying to think of a word that stuck the V and A together because I wanted to see how perfectly these would match. I knew they would because of the angles. And the V and the A in italic look great. Again, how often are you going to do this? Probably almost never. But the thing that struck me right away was, wait a minute, the contrast is getting higher as expected, but look at the thins. The thins actually get more thin as you get bolder. So we've got regular on top, and then we've got, what do we have? We have italic, so we've got regular on top, and then we've got medium below that, and the medium thins are thinner than the regular thins. You could argue that it's kind of, I don't know, you could argue that you're getting into like display sizes. So if you're getting into display sizes, maybe you want those to be thinner. And then similarly, the heavy, or they're calling these bold, the bold is thinner than the medium. So when you go from the bold to the regular, there's just a huge difference in that thin contrast. And then you've obviously got the difference between the bold, which you'd expect this heavy stroke to change to get heavier, but typically I don't think I don't think you see those thin strokes get thinner. So this is an interesting characteristic for me. The problem with that is that when you get zoomed out to these smaller sizes, you really lose it at the heavy weights. So I don't know that it would be better off. I'm sure the type designer, I'm sure that Oliver tested this out with a consistent thin stroke on there. But you are really losing the thins on the bold, which is unfortunate. But, you know, I don't know. If you're putting this in print and in a magazine or something, you're not going to notice that. So I always type typography on Wikipedia for these, like I just mentioned in the last one. And I typically do that in title case. So you see the capital T, the capital W. But man, this looked ugly. Maybe you don't think so, but there's just something so weird about this one. I think you might really have some difficulty typesetting this one. And I hate to be so negative on a typeface. All of these were, I did request and receive review license for these. So like I said, there's no trials for these, and Type Designers Foundry was kind enough to send me some review licenses for these to show you guys. But I have to be honest, it's difficult to typeset that. So I stuck it in all caps, and I think it looks better than this. But in body copy, how does it look? This is where the A's, not the X's so much. The X's don't, I mean, how often you type in an X? Almost never. But the A's are just constantly going to be in your body copy. And they stand out like a sore thumb. These A's, they just feel like there's an italic A shoved into this because of the angle on that. I'm not sure if you'd call this a stem or not, but on the stem and the tail here, because they use that alpha symbol, it really creates this thing that just draws your eye, and you're constantly pulled to that A. So while this could be an okay body copy typeface, and maybe it's not at all intended for that, but it could be, you could get away with this, I think, at the regular weight. The A just is too distracting. My initial thought though was, since the A is very similar, I bet that it looks all right in italics. I think it does. I do think it looks better in italics. The A immediately doesn't, distract as much because italics are always a little more calligraphic. They're always a little more characterful. Does the stem match the other stems? Does it match the same angle? No, but the other side of the bowl does. So I don't know. You expect a little bit more movement in the italics. The thing that throws this one off now suddenly is that Y that I thought I liked at first glance, that I thought was kind of interesting. Now all of a sudden the Y is what I'm looking at. I'm looking at this Y in typography. Y. I'm looking at the Y's in all of these types. And Y is not like X. Y is going to be at the end of almost every, is it adverbs or adjectives? Adjectives, right? Somebody correct me. But Ys are pretty prevalent in English at least. And you can see all of them there. And similar to the A's in the Roman, I think that the Y's are distracting here, unfortunately. Is this designed for body copy? I don't know. Typically these are not, but it's got a good weight to it. I feel like there's decent contrast, a low enough contrast in the regular weight to where it could work in body copy. It just doesn't because of those A's and the Y's, unfortunately. Maybe this is the beta. Again, this is the beta, so it's entirely possible that we could see some alternates designed for this, that where you get a more traditional Y, a more traditional A, a more traditional X, a more traditional K. I think if those were switched, then you're talking about a typeface that you could really do more with, and then you could throw on those, the defaults for your characterful stuff. Just wanted to set these next to Bodoni and Dido, so you can see how they can compare to some traditional high contrast typefaces, and you could see some of the similarities and where some of these things are being, some of the tradition is being drawn from. If we look at the M and the N here, it's going to look pretty similar to the M and the N here. Because, when you're doing these high contrast typefaces, there's only so many different things you can do. Noxy is definitely doing some different things here, which I appreciate. But I just wanted to show you this next to some more traditional high contrast D-dones because, it's worth looking at that and it's worth considering the alternatives. And if you were wanting to move away from one of these traditional ones, but you wanted to keep a similar vibe, I think this is where you would start looking. You look at Noxy and you look at other similar high contrast typefaces that are kind of doing something a little bit different. I think the numbers are particularly different. You can see all three of these have different figures on them, the numbers. But these here feel the most fun to me, honestly. Like I said, this is my favorite part of the typeface, but I think that they almost look more fun than the other two. Do they look less traditional, less maybe professional, less... they look a little more playful. Let's say that. They look a little more playful. You got the curl on the 2. You've got that serif on the back end of that, the 4 there. Oh, I guess this one has it too. Interesting. So maybe that's not entirely unusual. But it does just look a little bit more playful to me than the others. But I like it. I like what Noxy's doing. I just wish some of those things, I hope that when this gets turned into a full typeface, I hope that there are alternates for some of these other characters, because I think this is a very nice typeface. Just in its beta form right now, I think you'd have a hard time using it in a lot of situations, to be honest. You're not going to be able to use it for body copy. Not that it's probably designed for that. It's high contrast, but I think you're also going to struggle when it comes to stuff like this, setting those, if we're trying to set this I underneath the V right there, you're going to have trouble, and you're going to lose some of your contrast here. And then you're setting it in title case, you're still going to be dealing with those A's. So this is not one that I would necessarily recommend, unfortunately, and that doesn't happen very often. I think it's a nice typeface, and I'll definitely be paying attention to the development of it. But in its beta form right now, I would very much consider this to be much more of a beta than some of the others. Maybe this is just what the type designer wants. They're going to stick with it no matter what. I can completely respect that. But this just wouldn't be one for me. It might be one for you guys. I'm going to move on. We have 2 more works in progress to look at here from the Designers Foundry. And the third one is called Wondest. This one's coming from Type Colony. Type Colony is this person's name right here, Aliv Pandu. Hopefully I'm saying that right. I believe from Indonesia. But you can see, again, progress bars, all these different things. This says, Wondest is a refined serif typeface that blends the timeless elegance of Roman typographic traditions with distinctly modern sensibility. I don't think we need to read the rest of it. I think you can see that is 100% accurate when you look at this. It does have those very Roman, aspects to it, but it looks quite modern. The high X height on it, it feels more friendly than a lot of them that you're going to get to see. And you can see already there are some interesting ligatures and stuff pulled into this one. I like this one. This is actually my favorite one out of the bunch. And you can see there's some interesting uppercase ligatures on here as well. We're going to look at all these, so let's go ahead and head to Affinity right after we check the pricing. This one is, for the full family, going to be, can we get it? $80 for desktop for the full family. And this one is probably the one that's furthest along. Go ahead and get back to our pages here. And boom. Wondest. So this one has 9 weights. There's no italics on it, but it's 9 weights and it's variable. I do not have the variable version of the typeface. I just have the static ones because that's what I was sent for the review license. But this does have variable that would take you through all of the weights. Let's go ahead and look at those real quick, and then we'll go through the rest of the details. Obviously, these are 2 different weights, but we've got thin going all the way up to black. Boom. And I think all these look really nice. Like I said, this is my favorite one out of the bunch, but 9 weights, it's going to be variable, 455 glyphs, 14 open type features available from the Designers Foundry. No trial, like I said, but $80 for the full family on desktop. And once again, a variable, but very good license. So this one is still in beta, but for 9 weight, for 9 different styles, $80 for the family, you're looking at less than $10 per style, which I think is very reasonable. Let's go ahead and do an A to Z on this since we already looked at the weights, and I think that we'll see some of those Roman traditions in this, but it is doing some interesting things. I couldn't find a great comparison. So a lot of times I like to compare these typefaces. You can see the flared serifs on it, kind of an engraved, incised look to it. I pulled up Optima, and that's what we're going to look at with it. But even Optima is not like a great, oh shoot, my light turned out. Even Optima is not like a great one to compare it to. You can see it looks pretty nice. Like I said, flared serifs. There's, you know, you kind of get what you get. I really like that W though. I like a nice over. I don't even know what you call those. When the 2 V's cross over each other to make the W. I like that. Green glyphs there. Going to tell you that there are alternates for it. So we do have an alternate ampersand, alternate uppercase K, and look at just how big this X height is. So this is where they're really breaking away from tradition and getting into some more modern sensibilities, as they put it. Low extenders, big X height on it, and that is just going to make it feel more modern, more friendly. And that could be the right voice for some things and the wrong voice for others. If you wanted something that felt really, really traditional and heritage driven, you might not want to go with something with such a big X height. But I think in 2026, most use cases where you'd be using a flared serif like this, I think the tall X height is going to be perfectly fine on it. And just get through the numbers real quick. I like the 6 and the 9, how it gets almost to like a complete point on the ends there. That's pretty neat. Okay, let's look at some of these alternates. We've got the K right here. This is the traditional one. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. And here is the stylistic, dipping below the baseline. That is very Roman, you know, very traditional. You see that with Trajan, where the K drops below the baseline. I guess I could have pulled up Trajan. Trajan's just so different from this. And the ampersand, I do love the default. Lots of times, for whatever reason, the default ampersand is a boring one, and then they've got this one here for the italic or the alternate. But I think this one looks great right off the bat. They've got the boring one as the alternate. Love that. Somebody could have the boring one if they want, but you know, get the fun one, get the full ET on there, the full ET for the default. I appreciate that. Or you can get the lowercase ET, the lowercase ET on there for a third option. So we do have 1, 2, 3 options for the ampersand. And once again, this is a beta font, so that could expand even further. I doubt that it will, but I think those look great. I do prefer the default one the most, but let's look at this in body copy. In body copy, I think it looks great. I was actually going to set this in TDF sans because I thought this wasn't going to be a body copy font, but I think it looks great. I have this set in regular, and then there's no italics, so I can't show you the italics on here, but I do have bold, so I have digital age set in bold. I might knock this, I might pump this up just one more. So it goes regular, medium, semi-bold, bold, I don't know that stands out a ton. I might take this, I'll be crazy. Take this all the way up to black, and then I feel like it really stands out on there. Depends how much you want it to stand out. I like the textbook version of, think of like a textbook when you were in school. The bold would be really bold and like really stand out for key terms. It depends what you're doing. But I like my bold to really stand out. So I'd probably go maybe not all the way black. Maybe I'd go one step down from that. Regardless, you've got enough weights to play around with to where you can get it perfect for how you want it. Maybe you would even want this whole thing to not be regular. Regular is pretty light. You could take it up to medium or semi-bold. I'd go medium. Medium looks pretty solid. So maybe you do medium and then you do extra bold for the bold there. And you're in a decent place right there. But default leading, default line space on there. And I think there's great color on it. No light spaces, no dark spaces. The space between words is pretty big, but I think that's fine. With a tall X height, a little more space is nice. Yeah, good color on that one. Like I said, couldn't find a perfect comparison, but if you were thinking, along these lines, maybe you wanted to upgrade your typeface. Like I said, you can see how much lower the X height is on Optima with the B and the D here. And it's not super low, but look how much bigger it is with the B and the D compared to the ascenders on there. And you can see it just feels more modern immediately. So these aren't perfect comparisons, but I do think they share somewhat similar vibes in the sense of a lot of brands still use Optima. It was a really popular typeface. It still kind of is. If you wanted to break away from that, if you wanted to upgrade and this would fit your brand voice still with the higher X height, I think something like Wondest here from the Designers Foundry could fit that bill. I think it could be kind of fun to switch to something like this. It would definitely feel more modern. I can tell you that much. So even though these aren't like a one-to-one comparison, like something like the Designers Foundry, TDF Sans, how we can pretty closely compare that to Avenir. I think this is still a relevant comparison in the sense that maybe you would upgrade from one typeface to another. But yeah, I think it's a nice looking typeface. Like I said, this is my favorite one out of the bunch. It does include all of these ligatures, which I love to see. They're really fun to look at. But man, Eric Van Blockland got in my head after last week when we read that he didn't put any ligatures in Action Grotesque because he said ligatures are ugly. They don't usually get put to use. And there's very few instances where they're actually useful. And I said, I still love ligatures, and I do. I love to look at these in a vacuum. These look beautiful. They're super fun, but it's really easy to make them look. You can very easily get out of control with these. So I purposely took this to the extreme here and picked out, as many capital ligatures that I could and stuck them together. These are fun to play around with, and I think in the right situation, you could get away with using one or two of these at a time. But you can see how ugly this is compared to just using the default Go title case. And man, that looks beautiful. For a second, you almost think Wondest like, oh, is this a good font? And then you look at it and you use it appropriately and you're like, oh, hell yeah, that's a good font. Like, this looks great. The TT here, right here, I think that's a ligature. We're getting between the TT there. We could check real quick. Let me see. Tab out of this real quick. I can tell you for sure if this is. Let's go ahead and turn off the ligatures. Boom. Yeah. So we've got a nice ligature right here, and this makes sense. It looks great. Pulls them together, fixes that spacing. But we're not going overboard with them. If you wanted to have a little bit of fun, I wouldn't do it here. But if you wanted to have a little bit of fun, you could do something like the Co here. Why is that not working? I'm not sure. The CO. Oh, because they both have to be capitals. So you could do something like that if you wanted to get kind of fun, but you probably wouldn't do it in this situation. You do it somewhere more appropriate. But when you compare these two, you can see how easy it is to let the excitement of all these ligatures quickly get out of control. So use ligatures responsibly. This is a beautiful typeface. So I really don't have anything bad to say about this one. Like I said, this is my favorite one out of the bunch today. This was Wondest from the Type Designers Foundry. I apologize. This was Wondest by the Designers Foundry. And this one is designed by Type Colony. Got my words mixed up there. But yeah, I really like this one. I think out of the bunch, this is my favorite. It's $80 for the full family on desktop, but you're getting 9 weights, you're getting the variable font, and this is in beta, so it will continue to be developed, and that is a beautiful thing. Our last typeface here, let me see if I have any water left at all. A little bit. Our last typeface today is going to be, once again, from the Designers Foundry. This is their final works in progress that launched with this, this launch of the works in progress, the beta fonts, and it is Caltrop. Hopefully I'm saying that right, Caltrop. It's from Lennart, Breel. Only one style on this one. It's just going to be a static font, obviously, 294 glyphs, 15 open type features. Once again, no trial. It's available from the Foundry. Very good license. And this one is just $19 on desktop, which I think is a very reasonable price. Let's go ahead and dig into this. It does have some alternates and things like that, and I have shoved them into these lines right here because there's no lowercase. That's the first thing you're going to notice. This is all uppercase. This was a typeface. I apologize. We didn't actually go to the website. I'm not sure that it matters, but let me go ahead and do it anyway, just out of consistency. This was a typeface that was originally designed for a crest for Lennart's Dungeons and Dragons campaign, and he was doing the custom lettering for it, and then he realized, hey, I almost have a full typeface here. This is the one that I'm most sad that we can't see better specimens for, but I'll go ahead and show you these right here because I do think that these are great specimens, and they're going to give you a much more fun look at this typeface than I'm going to be able to in Affinity right now. You can see right there, 15 ligatures, 42 alternates. We're going to look at all of these. But I think in these these specimens right here, you really get a feel for what the typeface can do. So I think that these are great. I think that anytime a designer or a foundry can do stuff like this, please do it because you're going to sell way more typeface, well, way more fonts if you have nice looking specimens. So shout out to Lennart. Hopefully I'm saying your name right. These are excellent, and shout out to the Designers Foundry for picking this up as a works in progress. You can see all the glyphs right here. So that looks very nice. The orange one down there on the bottom are the ligatures. I'm going to show you all of those, but you can see, they've got the co-ligature there. They've got the copyright, but I think this really fits a D&D campaign. I think it fits, like they're saying, the heavy metal with the black letter, or I think it fits anything old I don't know what the right word would be, anything that's sort of like fantasy. Like I could definitely see this in The Witcher. Rolex, I appreciate you hanging out. Thank you so much for the info, brother. My eyes are too heavy and I have to buy. We'll see you in the next live. I appreciate you hanging out. Thank you so much. I will reply to you on Instagram. Have a good night. Get some sleep. Okay, let's finish up this last typeface. We are going to do an A to Z on this one here. You can see very calligraphic, very black letter, but it's doing some unique stuff. Per usual, black letter is one that you can get pretty creative with. And I am, once again, like I said, when we looked at Blacklettra from Brandon Nickerson, I'm not the biggest, black letter. I don't seek out black letter. I appreciate it when I see it, but I'm not someone that like goes and looks for black letter. But this one here is doing some fun stuff. And I do think that it is very appropriate for what it was originally designed for. So 2 different ampersands here, no need to swap between them. I can show you them right there. One on the left is the default, the one on the right is the alternate, and I think they both look great. I think they match the font. I think it's just personal preference. For me, if I'm gonna choose, I like the one on the right a little bit better, but let's go ahead and go through these numbers. And I'm definitely doing a late live stream tonight. No wonder, no wonder Holix there said his eyes are too heavy. I need to be in bed right now too. These numbers though, you're almost getting a little bit with some of these feel a little bit, I don't know, is it CJK or CKJ? CJK, Chinese, Japanese, Korean. They almost feel a little bit, I don't know if Oriental is okay to say. They almost feel a little bit Oriental, Asian inspired. Okay, so now we're getting into some of the alternates here. I do typically like to flip back and forth between these, but it was kind of awkward because they're not necessarily labeled, they're just alternate. So right now these don't have a good way to know which alternate you're going to get. So I'm just going to show you. You can see the A, the D, the E, and you can see some of these alternates. I do wonder how useful some of these alternates are and how much they were added out of indecisiveness, because when you look at the L, and the L, does it really matter which one you choose? I like that they're there. Don't get me wrong. I like that there are options to swap between. But are they there out of usefulness, or are they there because the designer couldn't decide which one was best? And if it's the latter, I think just put a little more time into it and decide. The R and the R here, those are pretty different. You're going to get different vibes out of those, and those pretty well match the ampersands over here. Like I could see putting some of these together. You've got the S and the S here. I don't know. I'm a little torn on whether I think that these are useful or indecisive, but some of these are very different. You look at the V and the W. You've got this W here and this V here, and I can completely see how those are alternates for those. Then you got this one here, and I don't know. Is there really that much difference between these? I just don't know. Same thing with the Y. We've got 4 different Ys to choose from. I don't like I said, I'm happy to see alternates included. You can completely ignore them. You don't have to use them. So there's really no harm in them being there. I'm being nitpicky, but this is a review, so I'm allowed to do that. Some of these ligatures are fun, not quite as many as the other typeface, and I do think these are a little bit more usable, especially for some Dutch and things like that with the IJ. The LL is fun. The TT for the uppercase is probably the most fun, squishing those two together, because let's go ahead and look at the T up here. Putting 2 of these together would not look quite as nice as putting this ligature right here together. And then lastly on here, they do have some fractions. So I've got the 4/5 right here to note that there's not unlimited fractions. You can't do whatever you want, but they do have some pre-built fractions here, which would probably be good enough for a display typeface like this. I don't think you have to have, I don't think you have to be able to do fractions in OpenType. I think that these here are probably good enough for this display use case of like Dungeons and Dragons and heavy metal. What do you need to be able to write 4/5 for? I think in 99% of use cases, these will be good enough, and they look really fun. I like that there's not a full bar between there, but there's the implied fraction. I think that's going to work really well. In body copy, as expected, this looks terrible. Don't worry about that. It's not meant for that. You would probably just set this in something else. So let's go ahead and set this in TDF sans. Boom, there you go. And then you can see how this sets as a headline compared to your body copy. And I think it looks great. It's going to look great as a headline. I think the better use cases for it, if you were doing like a heavy metal magazine or something like that, perfect. But I think it'd work great for signage and things like that. So I've got my number 56 for the 56th episode. I think it looks really cool there. That number symbol does come included. But I think in general, you can use some of those ligatures to have a little bit of fun. We've got some Laura Branigan calling Gloria. Little shout out here. But I think stuff like this is kind of fun, and you can use the ligatures in a fun way that's not going to be too distracting. Obviously, you could get rid of these if you want to. But I think this is one of those use cases where like it kind of does add a little bit more to it. This one here, calling Gloria, compared to this calling Gloria, it just feels a little more custom. It feels a little bit more professional, a little more put together, and these are really well done. Look at the curve on this L. So we've got the big L and the little L on top of it. Look at that curve. It perfectly matches that. These are really well done. Not that the other ones weren't. Not that the ones from Wondest weren't well done. They were well done. But I just think that in moderation with these things in general. But I think that they fit a little bit better with this Blackletter because, I don't know, you can have just a little bit more fun with Blackletter, in my opinion, compared to a Roman serif typeface. So I am a fan of this. Is it going to be useful for everything? No, I think Wondest is a little bit more practical. I think TDF Sans is the most practical out of all of these. But I think this is 4 really solid launch releases, beta releases. I'm going to turn my face cam on. I am in desperate need of a drink of water, but I'm going to give you my final thoughts on these. We'll go ahead and go to the full website. I think that these are really a really great collection of 4 beta typefaces. I'm happy to see other foundries doing this. I love Future Fonts. I think that that's one of my favorite places on the entire internet. But seeing other foundries do this on their own, I would much rather see beta fonts on foundry websites than no beta fonts at all, because a lot of these foundries aren't going to release on Future Fonts. They're just not going to. They don't want to cut, they don't want to share the licensing. They don't want to share the income. And that makes sense. They want to have complete ownership of it. They want to have it on their own website. So I'm happy that other foundries are doing this, and the Designers Foundry, I'm glad to see the Designers Foundry joining this game. And I think these are 4. I like that all 4 of them are very distinct too. I think these great launch typefaces: TDF Sans, the neutral geometric sans serif, Noxy, the high contrast, with some interesting stuff with the alpha and the chi and that italic Y. Wondest, great, modernization of a traditional Roman flared incised serif. And then Caltrop, just a really fun, a fun D&D lettering turned into a font. Hard to hate on any of these. So I think this is an excellent first launch. Daniel McQueen already told me that there's going to be much more to come on this website. If you didn't see it last week, there is a fun ASCII art generator on here where you can type whatever you want and copy this and paste it onto your whatever forum you want to, or wherever you want to stick this. So if nothing else, if you don't want any of these typefaces, this is still pretty fun. So that's actually going to be it. I'm going to switch to my face cam and we'll get out of here. I appreciate those of you who hung out during the live stream. I appreciate those of you watching the replay. I will have chapters added very soon. If you are going to go back and watch the replay, there will be chapters added in less than 24 hours. So I have been Curtis Simpson, and this was Jective's Typography News number 56. I will be back next Friday with number 57, and I will see you then. Have a good weekend. Bye.